If the two fallopian tubes are removed, does it stop egg production? Does it affect the ovary from producing egg? Can a human get pregnant even if the two fallopian tubes are removed? Well, stick around because I'll be answering that question. I know some of you might have heard this word tubal ligation. One some persons casually called tying of tubes, that's tying of your fallopian tubes. Now, in simple terms, this is a permanent form of birth control. What happens is that the fallopian tube, which is a pathway where the sperm travels to meet the egg, is either cut, tied, or even blocked. So basically, the egg and the sperm can't meet anymore, which means fertilization cannot happen. Tubal ligation in female is an opposite form of vasectomy in male. I made a video on vasectomy. If you're coming across my channel for the first time, do well to watch the video. Now, vasectomy, I don't want to go into that in this video. Now, this tubal ligation is just like an opposite form of vasectomy. Now, in female, the sperm cannot meet the egg, while in male, the sperm cannot be ejaculated out because that tube is either cut or blocked. But here is where it gets interesting. Many people think that the tube is literally tied like a knot. It's not that always simple. Doctors can actually cut and sew them, clip them, or even remove part of the tubes entirely. So it is a medical procedure, not just a quick tie and go situation. Now you may be wondering, who is this procedure actually for? Tubal ligation are for women who are completely sure, you must be sure that you don't want kids anymore, or maybe they already have the number of kids they actually want, or in some cases where pregnancy can pose a risk to the woman, or pregnancy can be life-threatening to the woman, then you can consider tubal ligation. And I will be honest with you right now, this decision is not something you will rush and do. It's something you sit and think through before going through this tubal ligation, because even though that the surgery is reversible, they are not always successful. So doctors typically consider this as a permanent decision. Now let's talk about the procedure itself. This procedure is usually done in a hospital. Sometimes it is done after childbirth, especially after a C-section or a separate procedure using something called laparoscopy, which is like a small camera inserted through tiny cuts in the abdomen. Most women go home the same day or within 24 hours. Now, I'll be answering some questions that you'll be curious to ask. And number one question says, if the two tubes are removed, does that stop egg production? Does removing the two tubes actually affect the ovary? Does it stop you from ovulating? The answer is no. Tubal ligation or removing the two tubes does not stop ovulation. You can still ovulate even without your fallopian tubes. And honestly, this is where a lot of people mess things up. Now, let's break it down in a simple way where everyone can understand. Eggs are actually produced in your ovaries and not your fallopian tubes, not your tubes. Every month, the human body, the female body undergoes a cycle. And during that cycle, one of your ovary releases an egg. That is what we call ovulation. Now, once that egg is released, it doesn't just float randomly. Your fallopian tube picks this egg. It travels through the fallopian tube. The fallopian tube is just like a pathway where the sperm meets the egg. So think of the fallopian tube like a bridge or a pathway. Their job is to catch the egg after ovulation and provide space where the sperm can meet the egg. Don't forget, your fallopian tube is where fertilization occurs. So the sperm travels and meets the egg in the fallopian tube. Then after fertilization, it travels back to the uterus, that's your womb. So they are super important for pregnancy, but not making the egg themselves, because the fallopian tube, the work of the fallopian tube is just to transport the egg. It doesn't produce the egg. The ovaries is the one that is responsible for producing the egg. Now listen up. If someone has both their fallopian tube removed, that's they remove both your fallopian tube, a procedure called bilateral sapingestomy, your ovaries will still be intact, working completely fine. Remember, the ovary produces the egg, not the fallopian tube. The fallopian tube is just like a pathway that helps to transport this egg. So your ovary will be intact. That means you can still produce egg, you can still ovulate, your hormones are still functioning normal, and you will most likely still have your regular menstrual cycle. Nothing actually changes hormonally. But here is the catch. Since the fallopian tubes are gone, There's no pathway for the egg and sperm to mix. So natural pregnancy becomes impossible. It's not because the body stopped working, but because the connection there is missing, the tubes are removed, cut, blocked, or even tied. For the next question, it says, a lot of people ask, does that mean pregnancy is completely impossible? Not exactly. Thank God for science. There's a medical option called IVF, that's in vitro fertilization. Maybe if you have a change of mind tomorrow, you can go for IVF. With IVF, doctors actually bypass the fallopian tubes completely. So you don't even need the fallopian tubes with this option. They collect the egg directly from the ovary, fertilize it, then place it into the uterus. So you see, even without fallopian tube, pregnancy can still happen with medical assistance. But naturally, no, you cannot conceive naturally. And I think this is very, very important to understand because some people assume that once you remove your fallopian tubes, your two fallopian tubes, that it affects your hormone, it affects your ovaries, it affects your ovulation, or even causes early menopause. No, that is not true at all. Tubal ligation or removal of the two fallopian tube does not stop you from ovulating. It does not cause early menopause. It does not affect your ovaries or maybe affect your hormones. Your ovaries are the main control center for hormones like estrogen and progesterone, and not your fallopian tube. So removing your fallopian tube does not automatically shut down your reproductive system. It doesn't work that way. It's just that it removes the pathway needed for natural conception to happen. Removal of your fallopian tube automatically mean that you will need medical assistance for pregnancy to occur. At the end of the day, the body is still doing its job. Your reproductive organs, your reproductive system are still functioning. Just that without that natural connection. Now, if you find my video helpful, give a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Bye.